Welcome to Pilates Elephants. I'm Raphael Bender. If you own a Pilates studio and you're worried that there are many Pilates studios opening up and they are undercutting you on price, and you're worried about the industry becoming commoditized, and you're worried about how to make your studio stand out in a sea of Me Too competitors, this is for you. I'm going to share how to make yourself stand out, and I'm going to give you very tactical advice, like specifics of exactly what to do. All right, so stick around because I'm going to start out by explaining why I'm going to share this advice and why it's going to work for you. If you know, and the reason this is top of mind for me right now is in my private business coaching, two of my clients this week have said this to me, that they're worried that, like they run very successful studios. One of them runs multiple successful studios, and they're worried about competitors opening up. And, they both were wondering, should we kind of do the latest thing? Like, should we, put towers on our reformers, or should we get chairs, or should we offer, strength-based reformer, or should we, basically do the latest thing in order to compete with these other studios that are doing the latest thing? And here is my answer. Here's what I told them, and I'm going to give you the same advice that I gave them, because I think, okay, well, if two of my clients are worried about this, then probably a lot of other people are worried about this too. So here's the thing. Pilates reformer is wildly popular right now, and it's been wildly popular for more than a decade. And at some point, it is going to become less popular. Like, it can't continue to be the most popular form of exercise on the planet forever. Something else is going to come along. And at some point, Pilates will drop to number 2 and number 3 and number 4. And at the same time, whilst it, which is something that many of you may be concerned about, and at the same time, the fact that it's wildly popular now also means that there are bazillions of people opening Pilates studios on every street corner, and there's way more competition than there used to be if you're a studio owner, and there's way more price competition in particular than there used to be. And so both of those situations, can cause some anxiety. So here are my thoughts, and here's what I've seen, based on my experience of history of other industries and what I'm seeing working for my coaching clients right now. Things come and go, fads come and go, and that is just human nature. Fads come and go in every industry, in every walk of human life, whether it's restaurants, fashion, movies, art, or exercise. The best, most popular thing 10 years ago in each of those categories is probably not the most popular thing right now in each of those categories. And that is just, that's the way of the world. And if you follow the fad, if you do the latest thing, you'll get people. But then those same people will flock to the new latest thing when the latest thing that you're doing is now no longer the latest thing, because that's the thing about the latest thing, is they go out of fashion. And so there are kind of two cycles of fashion, or probably multiple, but let's think about two cycles of fashion. Like, if you think back to, if you're old enough, your family photos from the 80s and 90s, okay, and you look at your hair in those days and your fashion in those days. Now, there were some hairstyles in the 80s and 90s that were quite extreme. They were very cutting edge, like they were fashion forward in that time. I'm thinking massive bouffant explosions of hair, teased up to kingdom come. Now, in the day, they were the latest thing, but now we look at them and we kind of cringe or laugh. And then there were people in the 80s and 90s that had, it was an 80s, 90s version of just a classic hairstyle that had been around for 100 years. Like, for example, for a woman, long hair, right? Not teased up or, done in any kind of extreme style, but just, classic long hair. Now, when you look back at your family photos of the 80s, if you look at the teased up hair, you kind of cringe and you think, gee, that was, that's no longer the latest thing. But if you look at the just classic hair, that's still a style that's present today. Now, today, it's not the latest thing, but it is still a thing. It is still popular. And that is the same in every area. Like, if you think about fashion, In the 70s, there were some crazy fashions. In the 80s, there were some crazy fashions. And the fashion forward people had that real 70s look or that real 80s look. But then there was people just wearing pretty, regular jeans and a T-shirt, plain coloured T-shirt, non-pastel, non-fluorescent, just maybe a black T-shirt or a white T-shirt or a grey T-shirt, some, basic colour, and just a regular pair of blue jeans, not massive bell-bottom flares, not, low riders, just like regular Levi 501s sort of thing. And sure, they're not 100% exactly what the current fashion is, but you could walk around in that outfit today and not be out of place. Whereas if you had like massive bell bottoms, low riders, or the 80s, fluorescent green leotards, you would be well out of place in most social contexts today. And it's just the case of so we have these two speeds of fashion, right? So the one that changes very quickly and very radically, and then the other one that is relatively constant over a much longer period. I'm thinking jeans and T-shirt is the slower speed, and the tizzed hair and the fluorescent colours are the faster speed. And on the faster speed of change, you get to be the latest thing and everybody's wearing it. But then 2 minutes later, nobody's wearing it. Whereas at the slower speed, you get to be, okay, it's never like the wildly popular thing usually, but 20 years later, 40 years later, it's still pretty normal and people still have some version of it. And that's the same with Pilates, okay? I want to tell you a story about restaurants, because I spent the first year or years of my career in working in restaurants. When I left school, I did an apprenticeship as a fine dining waiter in French restaurants here in Melbourne, Australia. And that apprenticeship doesn't exist anymore, but I learned, the wine regions of the Loire River Valley in France, and had a flambe, crêpes Suzettes at the table, and fillet of fish at the table, and all of those types of skills. I learned classical food service. And in those days, that was kind of the late 80s, early and through the 90s in Melbourne. French restaurants were very popular. There were lots of fine dining French restaurants in Melbourne at that time. And then sometime around, and so basically if you had a French accent and you opened up a restaurant, you could succeed in Melbourne in the 80s and 90s because French food was very popular. And then sometime, I can't remember the exact date, but around the late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there, the French did some atomic explosions on an atoll in the South Pacific near Australia called Mururoa Atoll. And there was massive outrage in Australia. Basically, people in Australia boycotted everything French, including French restaurants, which, it's not very logical because the poor people who run those restaurants, they weren't actually like you, in most cases, they were just Australian citizens who'd been here for decades and just had French heritage and a French restaurant. But it's like, so what are they going to do about the French government's nuclear testing? But sad as it is, a lot of those businesses went out of business in that time because people just boycotted all French things, including French restaurants. And so now in Melbourne, there are only a small handful of French restaurants still around. And guess which French restaurants didn't close down? Most of them did close down. Guess which ones didn't close down? The best ones didn't close down. And I'm going to define what I mean by best. So when it comes to, the latest thing versus, the classics, and this podcast is really an argument for the classics. When it comes to the latest thing versus the classics, the latest thing is about the appearance. And in the Pilates world, that would be about which bit of equipment you use, which workout you use, which cues you use, what you wear when you teach, all of the trappings, the external things. Whereas the deep, slower, more classic elements are just the things that don't change over time. Great results and great service. Those are the classics. They don't go out of fashion. And, this cuisine and that cuisine may come and go. People may boycott French restaurants, but what doesn't go out of fashion? Phenomenal food and phenomenal service. And guess which French restaurants are still around in Melbourne today, 40 years or 30 years later? It's the ones that have phenomenal food and phenomenal service, not the ones that had the latest, greatest, fad. It's the ones that just did the basics incredibly well. And you could go and get a steak frite there, or, some whatever French dish, and it was just done perfectly, and the service was immaculate, and it's been that way for decades. And dear listener, I mean, you probably have this in your own experience as well. And I like I like the food metaphors today. Maybe I'm hungry. Um, you probably have restaurants that you go to on a pretty regular basis. Like maybe there's one or two restaurants that you love because the food and the service there are always dependable, right? And maybe these restaurants aren't the latest, greatest thing. Maybe it's your favorite little Italian place, or your favorite Thai place, or your favorite Indian place, that you go to because it's just so good. And you don't go there because it's exciting or because it's new or because it's varied. You go there because it's just really fucking good. It's just good. It just does, there's nothing special about it apart from the fact that it's really fucking good. Like it's just a standard butter chicken or a standard, steak and chips or a standard salad that you get, but it's just a really good one. It's always really, really good. And I bet you, I'd be shocked if you don't have some place that you go to on the regular that fits that description. Now, there are probably other places that you try out. My wife and I were out for dinner at our old favorite pizza place that we go to when you always order the same thing because it's just really fucking good every Friday night. And then afterwards we're walking along, she said, "Oh, will you take me to Yo Whirl," which is this new place that's popped up, and you go and get frozen yogurt and you put toppings on it. And so that was fun. We went there. It was really nice. But guess what? Latest thing. In a decade, I would be absolutely astounded if that shop is still there. And I would be astounded if the pizza shop isn't still there in a decade, because it just serves basic pizza, but it's just done really well. And so that's what I'm talking about, dear listener. Now, should that pizza shop get worried about the Yo Whirl and go, maybe we should do frozen yogurt too? No, I think that would be a terrible, calamitous mistake, because what we actually love about that pizza shop is it's not the latest thing. It's just super predictable, high quality food and service. Now, dear listener, if you're thinking about, excellent service and great results, right? Well, maybe you're thinking, yeah, well, great. I already have, great service and great results, right? But do you? I'm going to link to a study in the show notes here that found, and this was a study of like over 2,000 people in the US, that found that 65% of people think they're above average intelligence. Think about that. 65% of people think they're above average intelligence. So you might be one of those 15% of people who think that you're above average Pilates teacher, but in fact you're not, because 65% of people can't be above average, dear listener. By definition, 49% of people are above average, or 50% of people are above average. And so, what does it mean to give truly great service and great results in a Pilates studio? Well, in my view, and Heath and I have discussed this many times. I've discussed it with Nathan Ross Rees on this podcast, and also with James Trineri. Results are about the physical changes that your clients experience: improve strength, improve range of motion, improve body control. And then from that flow a whole host of secondary results, peace of mind, more positive emotions, better sleep, better functional ability in their life, etc., less back pain. And so that's the results. And they are strength, range of motion, and control. And then the second part is the service. And that's all of the things about the experience associated with coming to your studio. So of course, it's greeting clients within 1 second after they walk in the door with a warm smile and a genuine welcome. It's remembering their names and their dogs' names and their kids' dogs' names and their sore knee and which is their favorite reformer and the fact that they need an assist to get their legs in straps, etc. So it's all of that stuff. And it's the jokes that you crack and the music that you play and the ease of parking and how clean the toilets are and how easy or difficult it is to book on your app, and whether the change rooms are congested before class and whether the classes start on time, and all of those things combined contribute to great service. Now, not all of them are equally weighted, but those are the things that contribute to great service. And so when we think about great results and great service, well, how do you know if you're delivering those things? And I think there are 3 measures that you can track which don't necessarily tell you directly. Like the only way if you know if you're delivering results is to actually measure your client's strength, and then you measure it a bit later, you see if they got stronger. But you can measure indirectly because I believe these things are what, these are like the perfect spaghetti dish, or the perfect niçoise salad, or the perfect steak Diane, the perfect crepe Suzette just the perfect rosemary and salt crusted pizza dough like that my wife and I get every Friday night. That these are the things that keep people coming back. And so if people keep coming back, there's a pretty good likelihood that you're doing a lot of this stuff right. Now, you might be thinking, great, well, my classes are waitlisted, so I must be doing a lot right. Now, dear listener, probably you are doing almost all of these things right. But if you own a studio, can you say the same for all of your instructors? And I'm going to bet that there's a high probability that for almost all of you, you can't say the same for all of your instructors. Now, maybe you have one or two amazing instructors that you just love and you would trust them with your most finicky clients. And maybe you have 3 or 5 pretty decent, okay instructors that can get by and their classes aren't terribly empty, but they're just, they're not as good as you in your heart of hearts. And then maybe you've got 1 or 2 instructors that deep in your belly are not that great. Now, how do you know this? Well, it's just based on their class numbers, really. So do you track capacity utilization per instructor each month? And what I mean by capacity utilization is the percentage of spots in that class that were actually filled with paying clients averaged over the month. So if you have 10 reformers, just to keep the math nice and simple, if on average you had 8 clients in that class over the month, now average means, you might have had 6 some days, you might have had 10 other days, but you averaged 8. So you can't, the only way you could average 10 is if you had literally 10 every single class. So you're going to average, somewhere around 8 to 8.5 or 80 to 85% capacity utilization if you're really good. Because once you start getting up above 85%, it becomes really difficult for people to get in and people start dropping off. And, even if you're fully booked, you'll find almost every week, at least 1 out of the 10 people will no-show or cancel at the last minute or whatever. So basically, if you're averaging 80 to 85% capacity utilization across the month, that is one of the 3 key indicators that I'm going to share with you that tell you that, you are doing a really good job teaching that class. Because people keep coming back to the class. Now, people keep coming back to the class if the class is really good, but maybe they just come back to that class because it's Monday night at 6 p.m. and that's the time that suits them. And, the class is okay. It's not amazing, but it's like, well, it's just the only class they can get to, so they come to it. So the capacity utilization by itself is one of 3 measures, but it's not the only one. The next one is churn. And this is a measure of what percentage of your members cancel each month. And so if you have 100 members at the start of the month and of those 100, 10 of them cancel during the month, and at the end of the month, 90 of those original 100 remain. Now, you might have got more from new clients, but of those original 100 that you had on the first of the month, if you've lost 10 of them by the end of the month, that's a 10% churn. And the best studios have between 5 and 10%. Obviously, 5% is better than 10%. And it's very, very difficult to get below 5% because you can't eliminate churn. People leave for their own reasons. They move house, they change jobs, they lose their jobs, etc. But if you're above 10%, it's probably a you thing. And really, if you're above 5%, it's probably a you thing. So 5 to 10% is ideal. If you're more than 10%, you are not optimized. You're not making the perfect steak for it yet. And then the third metric is now you can't really track churn per instructor unless you have a studio where people book into the same session with the same instructor week after week. But otherwise, it's just a general metric for the overall quality of your classes in your studio and the service and experience in your studio. And then so the first metric is capacity utilization, should be 80 to 85%. The second metric is churn, should be 5 to 10%. Lower is better. And then the third metric is the first visit to sign up conversion rate. And that is the percentage of people who visit your studio on your intro offer, who then sign up for a membership or a 10-pack or whatever within their intro offer period. So if you have an intro offer that's like 4 classes for $60 in your first 2 weeks, for example, what of those, if you have 10 people who buy that intro offer in this month, of those 10 people, if 5 of them purchase a membership within the month or within their intro period, we would say you have a 50% conversion from first visit to sign up. So of the 10 who had their first visit, 5 of them converted to membership, so 50% conversion. And for a large group studio, so like 5 plus reformers where everybody's, I'm really thinking more 10 plus reformers, but yeah, probably 10, let's say 10 reformers is what I'm actually thinking. Around 50% conversion, first visit to sign up, is KPI. So if you're doing 50% conversion, that means your classes are pretty good. If you're doing more than that, it means your classes are outstanding. If you're doing less than that, it means your classes aren't as awesome as they could be. And for a small group studio, say 4 clients, where it's much more bespoke, I would expect an 80% conversion. So 80% of people who try it should continue on. Now, if you're somewhere in the middle with 6 reformers or something, well, it should be somewhere in the middle between 50 and 80. And the reason for that is, in a larger studio, people are just by nature more anonymous. There's by nature less personal interaction. It's probably a little bit less expensive. And so all of those things contribute to the fact that just make people less likely to convert. So 50% for a 10-bed studio, 80% for a 4-bed studio, and somewhere in between if you're somewhere in between, is the KPI. So if you're within all of those KPIs, now you can track this last KPI per instructor. So if you look at, of all the clients who bought an intro pack in June, let's say, whatever month, look at the clients who did their first class with Sally, what percentage of them bought a membership? And look at the clients who did their first class with you, the studio owner, what percentage of them bought a membership? And dear listener, I predict that you will find that people who do their first class with you, surprise, surprise, are more likely to convert to a membership than people who did their first class with Sally. No offense to Sally, but that means Sally's not as good as you. So I predict what you'll find if you track these numbers. Now, if you don't track these numbers, you cannot say truthfully that you have excellent service and excellent results. You just don't know. You hope you have excellent service and excellent results, but you don't know. You have to track these numbers because these numbers track people's behavior. They track people voting with their feet, with their time, and with their wallets. And that shines, that illuminates what people actually think. So when you track these numbers, your capacity utilization per instructor over the month, your churn, which is just by the whole studio, and then your first visit to sign up conversion percentage by instructor over the month. And you might have to track the first visit to conversion over a longer period, depending on how many instructors you have and how many first visits you have, just so you have a meaningful sample size. But if any particular instructor is not within the KPIs I've mentioned, that means they've got room for improvement, right? So if your capacity utilization is 85% and Sally's is like 60%, well, that means Sally's not as good as you, objectively, right? If your first visit to sign up is 75% and Sally's is 45%, Sally's not as good as you, objectively. So you need to teach. So in other words, when I come to your restaurant and you cook, I get the perfect meal and I give a 5 out of 5 rating. Whereas when I come to your restaurant and you're not in that night and Sally's in charge of the kitchen and Sally delivers the food, I get a 3.5 star experience. And it's like, it's not bad, but I'm like, yeah, we probably could have cooked something that good at home. This wasn't an exceptional experience. And dear listener, that's the hard truth. And if you're already tracking all of these numbers and all of your instructors are within KPI, well, you're awesome and I take my hat off to you. And if you're either not tracking them or you are tracking them and your instructors aren't in KPI, you're not a bad person. You're not a failure. You're not a bad instructor, but you've got some opportunity to really build your business here. And this is how you stick. This is how you stick out. This is how you stand out. You're that restaurant that you've visited 20, 30, 40, 50 times and every single time it's outstanding. That's the restaurant that, you want to be. So that when people, dear listener, think about your own behavior, right? Imagine if, you go out to dinner, a couple of times a week, okay? And sometimes you go to your old faithful restaurants, the ones you know are just going to deliver and that you love it. And then sometimes you try somewhere new, you go to Yo Well. And so, dear listener, just say you lose your job or you get downsized or your mortgage payments go up or whatever. And so you have to hold on to some of your money and you think like, oh, we can't go out to dinner twice a week, and we can only go to dinner once a week. Well, where are you going to go? You're probably going to go to the place that you know is going to deliver. You're not going to waste your one night out on somewhere that's more speculative and might be terrible. And certainly if you go somewhere and it's average the first time, you will no way be going back to that place. So you earn people's business by delivering an exceptional experience again and again and again and again and again, the same exceptional experience. That's what they want. And so now we come to the point of it. How do you deliver that? All right. So here's the thing, dear listener. It's very hard to be truly exceptional at anything. It's easy to make steak and chips. It's really fucking hard to make an exceptional steak frite every single time. And it's easy to teach a Pilates class. It's very hard to teach an exceptional Pilates class every single time for a decade. And it takes so much time and effort that you just can't be exceptional at more than just a few things in your lifetime. And if you're constantly changing to the latest thing, you don't get the chance to become truly exceptional at anything because you just don't get in enough reps. Okay, so here's how to get your staff to make the perfect steak frite every time. Now, this is not easy, but it works 100% of the time, every time. And if you listen to this and think about it, nothing's going to happen. But if you listen to this and do it, you will transform your business. All right, this is what we do in our business, and this is what I advise my clients, like I said at the start of the episode. So firstly, I'm assuming, dear listener, that you are the best teacher in your studio. Now, how do I know? What do I mean by best? Highest capacity utilization and highest conversion from first visits to signups. Most 5-star reviews might be another one that you could measure. All right, so I'm assuming that you are the best instructor in your studio as measured by those things. And so what we're going to do is bottle you. Now, I would say 999 out of 1,000 studio owners, and I have literally talked to more than 1,000 studio owners. And this was me, in the first 8 years that I ran a studio as well. Most studio owners don't like to tell their instructors how to teach. They, when I owned a studio for years, I would just be like, okay, great, you're a great instructor. I don't want to presume to tell you how to suck eggs. So you just go, the studio's that way, go do your thing. And then there are some studio owners, and I've been this person as well, who do have a way that they want it done, but just don't have the energy or the time or the emotional energy to audit their instructors' classes on a regular basis, to do one-on-ones with their instructors, and to coach their instructors to do it exactly the way they want it done. So if you're either or both of those people, dear listener, this is for you, because it's not easy, but it is very simple. And if you do it, it will 100% work, and you'll have every instructor in your studio will be as good or better than you. All right. So firstly, you need to film yourself teaching a lot. And when I say film, I just mean put your phone in the corner of the studio and just record all your classes that you teach. And teach a bunch of classes, teach 20 or 30 classes, film yourself, and then of those, choose the 5 best ones. 5 where you just nailed it. You're like, oh my goodness, best class ever. Perfect programming, perfect cueing, perfect progressions. It was just a really great class. I challenged people at exactly the right level. I worked all of the body parts in all of the directions, all of that stuff, right? So really, really banging class. Get 5 of those that are different. Now, they don't have to be radically different, but just not literally the same, programming. And then you take those 5 videos and you turn them into 5 standard classes that you teach. Right now, I should say that those classes need to be standardized, right? So if you're teaching an open level class or an intermediate class or a beginner class or whatever, if it's open level, all of the classes need to be at the level that you want your open level classes to be taught at, right? They can't be like one super hard class and one super gentle class, because what we're doing here is we're bottling what you do as an instructor, and we're establishing the playbook of how to teach a great class at your studio so that the burger comes out perfect every single time. Doesn't matter who's cooking it. All right, so you've got your 5 best banging classes that are your perfect open level classes or your perfect beginner classes or whatever type of class we're talking about. And you need to do this for each class type, right? So if you have beginners classes and intermediate classes, you need to do 5 of each. And you take those 5 videos and then you turn them into a program. So, right? So you take the video of your class and you type out on a Google Doc the program. Okay, we did this exercise for this many reps on this spring, then we did this exercise for this many reps on this spring, etc. Okay, so you put all of the layers. If you did the hundreds with the knees bent, then you went to legs straight, then you went to one leg low and one leg bent. Like, write out every single thing that you did from a programming standpoint in that class, in order, how many reps or how long you did it for, the spring setting, the body position, knees bent, knees straight, all of that stuff, right? So that it can be reproduced exactly. Then transcribe your video. So just use a transcription service like Descript, or there's lots of, just go to Google and type in and transcribe a video. Okay, and there's lots of places you can get that done. And then edit the transcription, take out all your ums and ahs, take out all of your jokes and you're talking about the client's dog and their kids and all of that stuff, and just leave the cueing. Okay. And then turn that into a cueing script. And then copy and paste the cueing onto the programming doc. So you've got a Google Doc with the program. It's got the exercise, name of the exercise, the spring setting, the body position, the foot pass position, the number of reps you did. And then next to that, it's got the cues, the precise, exact word-for-word cues that you used in your best ever version of teaching that class. And that now you have 3 things. You have a video of you teaching that class. You have a class program on a Google Doc, and then you also have a cueing script on that Google Doc. And you do that for each of those classes, and then you go to your instructors and you say, hey team, I'm going to teach you how to be a better instructor. Now, what do I mean by better instructor? I mean more popular, with classes at 80 to 85% of capacity utilization averaged over the month, and a first visit to sign up percentage of over 50% if you're in a large group, or over 80% if you're in a small group studio. And when we get you there, then I'll know that you're a really kick-ass instructor. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn to teach this class number 1, let's call it. Okay, so you'll show them the video of class number 1. Oh, sorry, don't show them the video. Give them the program and the cueing script and say, okay, now here's a video of me teaching this program using this script, and show them the video. And they'll say to you, like you really just literally say the script in the video and it just really works. It really lands with the clients. And you'll be like, yep, that's why I'm showing it to you, because this is how you cue these exercises really well. This is the script I use and this is what really works. Like, and dear listener, maybe you're thinking like, oh, scripting's, it's not creative, it's not artistic. Well, think about how you teach, right? I mean, you must have taught thousands of classes at this point if you own a studio. When you cue a particular exercise, like maybe when you cue short spine or long stretch or side splits, right? I'm going to bet you basically say the exact same words every time you teach those exercises. You basically have a script, right? And why do you use the same words? Because you found what works. Like when you say certain things, almost everyone gets it straight away. And when you say different things, like people don't get it as much. There is a better way of cueing each exercise. I'm not saying there's one best way. I'm just saying like there are a few ways that work really well and there's a bazillion ways that don't work as well. And once you find one of the ways that works really well, you tend to repeat it. And I bet that's what you do. That's what I do. That's what all of the great instructors I know do. They basically have a little script in their head. Now, you might not have written out the script, but you probably say the same words each time you teach, or very close to it. So what we're doing here is we're not like crushing the poor, creativity of this delicate, songbird of your instructors. We're giving them a life hack and saying, hey, look, you don't know the great script yet. You're using like one of the second or third tier scripts that just doesn't work as well. They probably cue it the same way every time they teach it already, just not the best way. So they probably already have a script. They probably cue it the same, but just their cues aren't as good as your cues. Why? How do I know that? Because their classes aren't as full, right? Because if the classes were as full, you wouldn't even be listening to this episode. You'd be bored and turned off by now and thinking like, my instructors are all perfect and, they've all got like 90% capacity utilization, so I don't need to listen to this. So the fact that you listen to this tells me that, very likely your instructors aren't as good as you. So you know the better cues, so teach them your cues, right? It's a life hack. It's not crushing their creativity. All right, teach them those cues and have them teach those cues to you and have them teach those cues in their class and have them film themselves teaching those classes. Have them film themselves and then have them, this is the genius step, critique their own video, right? And how they critique it is they use Loom, which is just a free screen recorder video, or you can pay a pretty minimal monthly fee. And they just play the video of them teaching, and then they screen record, and they record their comments. Oh, I think I did this really well. This bit here kind of sucked. Should have done this a bit more like this. Didn't get this cue quite right. Chose the wrong spring for Sally there, etc. Right? And then what you'll find is them critiquing. What are they critiquing? They're critiquing it against your video and your script and your program, right? And what you want is them to teach it just like you. So why is the video important of you teaching? It's because the script and the program tells them what to say in which spring settings, but it doesn't tell them like where to stand in the room, or how to project their voice, or when to pause, or where to look, or when to just walk over and change someone's spring without saying anything whilst you're cueing the rest of the group. But all of that stuff is included in the video. And so what you want is for them to teach and their video to look the same as your video. So where they stand in the room, the tone of voice, the pace, the pauses, the cadence, the focus, the spring changes, all of that should be the same as yours. Now, obviously, if their clients are different and that, Sally needs one spring less instead of one spring more, then they need to do that. But in terms of the cues that they use and their position and all that stuff, it should be almost as identical to yours. And that's what they're critiquing. So they're critiquing how well they mimicked your exact delivery, your exact cues, your exact program. And a 10 out of 10 is they're identical. And you get them to critique it, and then you watch every fourth or fifth one that they submit to you. And what you'll find is their self-critique will actually improve quite dramatically by just self-critiquing. But you need to check their work every fourth or fifth one just to make sure, like, sometimes they go off the rails and they're like, oh no, I think I did a really good job. And you look at it and you're like, oh no, that wasn't really good. Or maybe sometimes they're really down on themselves and you think, actually, no, that you did a great job. This is perfect. This is exactly right. So you do need to check their work every fourth or fifth one that they submit to you. But them self-critiquing will be amazing, and you'll see a dramatic lift in quality. And then you just go through those 5 classes. So you have them teach that one class, and then you teach them the second class, then you teach them the third class. And then basically you get to this weekly cadence where they're all teaching the 5 classes, and they're only teaching those 5 classes. They're not making up their own shit. They're just teaching your 5 approved classes using your cues, your programs, your spring choices, your progressions, your layers, and your positioning in the room and all of those things. And at that point, when you look at those and all of a sudden you're starting to see, their capacity utilization's going up, their first visit to sign-up conversion's going up, the churn is going down, they're getting more compliments, they're getting more 5-star reviews. Clients, there's a pep in their step, attendance is up, churn is down. At that point, you have an A+ team. And at that point, you can say to the team, hey, we could go one of 2 ways here. I could just add more classes to the mix. I could give you my next 5, all-time great classes, and we could just build our repertoire. Or you could take my classes and you could do, like, we're always going to start with footwork or always going to end with mermaids or whatever your thing is in your studio. But I want you guys to now add a sequence in the middle. Okay. If you want, you can add one, but it has to fit these rules, right? It has to work all the body parts in all the directions, whatever the rules are at your studio, right? And so then you get them to critique and you watch their critiques and you check that they're not going off the rails and teaching something random. But by the time they've taught your classes to perfection for a few months, like, they should have imbibed, the essence of how you teach and the philosophy, like, unconsciously of how you teach. And so what they make up will fit very likely with what you do. And so at that point, you've got 3 or 5 or 7, whatever, instructors who are literally as good as you, that you could give your most fastidious, your most anxious client to that person. You'd be 100% confident that that client will be looked after just as well as if you were there personally yourself. And you can be at home asleep, spending time with your family, sitting on a beach in Maui, and your studio will run, and the clients who arrive will receive the perfect steak frite every single time. Doesn't matter who's serving in the kitchen. It's always perfect. And then you will be, dear listener, differentiated from your competitors. Now, how will this differentiate from your competitors in a practical nuts and bolts way? So, true story. One of my clients ran a successful studio for half a decade, no competition in the local area. And then all of a sudden, within about 6 months, 3 major franchises opened up all within a couple of blocks of her. And she noticed, like, her class attendance went down, her revenue went down for a couple of months. Went down the first month and went down more the second month. And then the third month it started going back up again. And then the fourth month it basically normalized. And what she found was that clients went away because the new thing came along and they were like, oh, there's a new Asian, French, Italian, Indian fusion restaurant opened up in the neighborhood. I'll give it a go. And so people went and gave it a go, and they offered super low prices, a month free unlimited, etc. And people were like, let's give it a go. So they went and gave it a go, and everything was shiny and everything was, fancy. And then after their month, they came back and they said, you know what? That studio was shit. The classes were shit. There was like one good instructor there, and then there were 8 bad instructors, or the instructing was super patchy, and the class levels were just so random, and some classes were super hard, and some classes were super easy, and they were all labeled as open level, or, like the quality wasn't there, in other words, dear listener. And think of your own behavior, right? There's your ye old favorite restaurant that you go to every Friday night. Like I go to this place called Proof Pizzeria with my wife, Jules. And we always order the same thing, the plain pizza with sea salt and rosemary. And it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And then we have warmed olives with that, and they are so good. The Sicilian olives. Oh. And then the Yo Whirl opens up around the corner, and we think, well, why don't we try the Yo Whirl this week? Let's go crazy. And we try the Yo Whirl, and we go there, and afterwards we say, how was that? And we say, yeah, that was pretty good. And then next week when we say, okay, where do you want to go? It's like, let's go back to Proof Pizzeria, because guess what? Yo Whirl was pretty good, but it wasn't like, oh my fucking God, amazing. Right? It wasn't like 100% chance of success of having a fucking awesome meal. Whereas Proof Pizzeria, that's what you get. You order the wood-fired pizza with rosemary and salt and the warm olives, like 100% chance you will be delighted every single time. And that's why we go back there. So that's what will happen with your clients as well, dear listener. If if a competitor opens up around the corner and they're cheaper or newer or fancier, or they've got towels on the reformers or chairs, or they do hot Pilates, or they have some kind of other fancy, whatever the latest thing is, okay, when you're listening to this, people will have a sticky beak. They will go and try it. But guess what? They're going to find that the food is inconsistent and it's just not as good. It's just not as good. It's just not as good. So that's it, dear listener. It's not sexy. It's not complicated, but it's pretty fucking hard. Just be better. Just make a better burger. Just make a better steak frite. Make a better wood-fired pizza with salt and rosemary. And in my opinion and my experience and the lessons I've been able to learn from history, that is how to differentiate your studio from a sea of Me Too competitors who are trying to undercut you on price. That is how to avoid being commoditized. I mean, there's a million fucking pizza restaurants, right? But I don't see them all as the same. I mean, there's Domino's across the road. We never go there. Why not? Because we don't see it as the same. They don't have this particular wood-fired bread with salt and rosemary like that. The Proof Pizzeria, their menu, if you look at the menu, it's the same fucking menu as Domino's. Capricciosa, Hawaiian, vegetarian, marinara, like it's the same, margarita. It's the same menu, right? There's nothing like, quote, different about it. It's just fucking better. That's what's different about it. It's better. So that's how I recommend that you differentiate yourself, dear listener, is just be better. And how do you be better? You relentlessly focus on quality. And how do you relentlessly focus on quality? You train your instructors on a weekly basis to teach just like you, because you are a great teacher. Otherwise, you wouldn't have started a successful business in the first place if people hated your classes. And just objectively, if you look at the numbers, I'm very confident you'll see that you are the best instructor at your studio. So just teach everyone to teach just like you. All right. I hope you found this useful. Well, you haven't found it useful yet. But what I can tell you is that if you actually apply this, it works 100% of the time, every time. You will turn your instructors into super beings. They will be transformed into greatly improved versions of themselves professionally. And that's a skill set they'll have for the rest of their lives. So you'll change their lives. And your clients will experience much better results and have a much better experience, and they will tell their friends, and they'll come to more classes, and they'll pay you more money, and they'll give you more reviews. And it's not easy, but it really, really works. So instead of stressing out about what to do, instead of dancing on social media, instead of putting in more gizmos and gadgets and trying the latest thing, just be better. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one.